Hi, this is Michael Red, and I am the author and founder of Leadership Zen. Welcome to episode 2 of what is meant to be 4 introductory episodes into kind of who I am, where I came from, and ultimately what is Leadership Zen and what I believe it can do for you in terms of personal change and personal transformation. Now, I spent a little bit of time going through my background in episode 1, so I don't want to go through that deeply here in episode 2, but I have been a global executive for about 24, 25 years now. And that's given me the opportunity to see a lot of people and to be able to start to understand why people perform. So linking their behaviors, their thought patterns, and so on and so forth to how they actually perform. And that performance can be within a business context, community context, how you deal with your relationships, and really even what your own outlooks are for the world, for yourself, in terms of the possibilities of things that you can create. Those things came together for me and really formed the basis of Leadership Zen. This particular video is designed to answer that one question. What exactly is Leadership Zen? And I will tell you that when you have a name like that, it tends to beg that question quite often. I get asked that question every time I introduce it to someone else. So let's just jump right on in and really start to understand what is Leadership Zen. So they say that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with just a few steps. The decision to watch this video or to read my book or to read my blog really says to me that you've already made a commitment, or at least exceptionally curious, to figure out exactly what kind of change can you make in your life in order to be more effective, in order to be more fulfilled, in order to have a different outlook in terms of what's possible in your life. Now, it seems to a lot of people that this is an easy step. It seems that the outcome or the end game is really easy when you think about all the programs and all the books and all the courses and everything that's out there. But anybody that's actually tried any of these will recognize that the real answer is significantly more complex. The end game may seem bright and beautiful, and that's really what we're taught to see when we go through these things. But the truth is that the path is rarely straight. It's almost never smooth. And the light that you see at the end of the tunnel is really just one stop on a lifelong commitment to excellence that some people find difficult to sustain. There will always be another light, and there may even be several to choose from. Welcome to the world of personal change. With all that in mind, one might wonder, why Leadership Zen? Why try to change at all? How is this different than anything else I've tried before in the past? Well, the truth is there are plenty of reasons for seeking transformation, but I articulate and advocate for this philosophy and practice precisely because I don't want it to be just another stop along the highway. I don't want you to feel like you are a hitchhiker who just got picked up and driven 100 miles, dropped off, and now you're standing by the side of the road waiting for the next car to take you for the next 100. I wanted to create and communicate something that I believe in, which I do, and that is fundamentally the foundation of Leadership Zen. So what exactly is it? Well, the easiest way to describe it is that it is a humanist philosophy founded on something called positive psychology, emphasizing the building of strengths that help individuals lead meaningful and fulfilling lives. It suggests that the most important catalyst for change rests in the power of people, and that we can all be more effective by harnessing the power of our own reason and our own inner resolve. Combined with an understanding of traits and characteristics that make people successful, we can ultimately improve our outlook, our performance, and our influence in the world. That is Leadership Zen. However, while the traditional, albeit relatively new field of positive psychology tends to stop right about there, we expand beyond those traditional definitions by promoting a more holistic approach to well-being that focuses not only on the mind, but also the body, the soul, and the spirit. We call this the MBSS connection, or the MBSS system, recognizing that truly successful and influential people try to check all of those boxes to make sure their whole system is functioning in an optimal fashion, that you're finding balance and harmony between those properly working systems in order to make sure that the optimal or best you is coming to the table all the time. Think of it like going to the doctor and getting checked out for the flu. You aren't going to go to work straight after that because you realize that you are unhealthy, unwell, and your performance is going to suffer because you don't feel at your optimum. And by the way, at the same time, the people around you aren't necessarily as happy either. So you typically don't go and do that until you've healed yourself. Okay, so that's dealing with more of a negative thing. So I feel unwell, therefore I am going to get myself better in order for me to be able to perform differently. Leadership Zen is a little different because it promotes a more proactive approach, an integrated approach to health across all those four systems. So again, the mind, the body, the soul, and the spirit. That's designed to sustain your performance and well-being. And in this way, the philosophy, while it remains firmly rooted in human psychology and personal development, its practice looks to affect you in a broader, more permanent way, in that it seeks to promote habits that enable you to flourish for years to come. It isn't just a moment in time. Now, that may feel like a lot, but it doesn't end there. While Leadership Zen starts and ends with you, and I promise you that it does start with you, the individual, and the individual you, its ultimate aim translates your positive evolution into vision and actions that impact our communities and society at large, not to mention your relationships, your friendships, and so on and so forth. That's what we're trying to cultivate here. When people change themselves, they can change the world, leading by example to become catalysts for others to follow suit. That is why our motto is changing the world one life at a time. That one life starts with your own. Now, you might be wondering where all this came from. When I first started writing in the early 2000s, my intent lay clearly in advancing new ideas in leadership development based upon the programs I had attended since probably the mid-1990s. Some of it originated in academia, but a lot of it came from the coursework that I did through my company. We had a strong culture of people development, having an impressive curriculum set on addressing different aspects of being a better leader or manager, all designed to improve performance in our core business. I took all of them, both the required ones and the optional ones, that seemed to address the needs I thought I had or had in order to grow, things I needed to do in order to grow. Outside of formal classes and seminars, I read all the books, I followed all the popular authors. Back then, I could literally check a lot of boxes when it came to my annual performance objectives. And that's because the physical act of taking those classes was literally on my performance objectives. Literally, when I sat down each year with my supervisor, my boss, to say, this is what I'd like you to accomplish in this particular year, there would literally be a number of classes. Take this class, so on and so forth. The problem is it mentioned taking the class and not necessarily doing anything with them. That's why something's always lacked for me back in those days. Because while most of these classes and books were rich in philosophy, they were often short on practice. Very few emphasize the importance of post-class action plans. And quite frankly, that's even if they existed. None set actual performance objectives linked to my job that could be traced back to what I had learned. While some certainly tried to, most of these classes that weren't teaching me my actual job. So if I was in this particular function, to teach me that function to be a little bit better, anyone that wasn't necessarily teaching that function really tried to relate to how to be a better leader or how to be a better manager. The funny thing is, and that includes me, people would walk out of these classes and assume that they were somehow better because of it. Literally, because I took this course on Monday and Tuesday, by Tuesday afternoon when I got released, I was a better manager. The problem with that is there really was no way to judge their eventual effectiveness, their eventual efficacy. Neither our performance metrics nor our talent management processes incorporated them other than to say completed. Much of that blame, if you want to call it that, and I don't use the word blame, really is how these processes were led as much as how they were designed. But as performance reviews evolved in the industry, and that's really all industries, into more of a talent management thing, I knew that something was missing for me. Eventually, I had learned it early, how I had learned it early in my career, stood in stark contrast to what I believe should happen when it came to my own personal development and when it came to developing others. And that was a pretty profound change. But something else was missing as well. These classes and seminars, while mostly providing some level of value from a theoretical and academic standpoint, usually lacked effective ways of teaching people leadership. There is something fundamental in terms of operating at the ground level with the people that you work with or lead, or even associate with on a day-to-day basis, that just can't come across in a role play over a day or two. And the way that I always illustrate this is if you think about like a good negotiations class, and there used to be a number of these, or at least one that would be in the SkyMall catalogs and so on and so forth, the effective negotiation class. And literally two sides were given the same objective to come out on top of each other. It didn't really teach win-win, win-win-win, even though it kind of said it. But when you know that the predetermined outcome is that somebody should end up with more or less, or even if it's we should end up with something that we all feel good about, there's no real world circumstances around that to really provide the nuance of what a negotiation is really like. And the problem with leadership development or self-development or whatever is the fact that you can put me in a class and have me sit down and role play what it's like to talk to somebody or to do a performance review or to do this. But the other people that are doing this are typically the other people in the class, which means that they're either coming in with the script or they're kind of ad-libbing it and whatnot. And it's very different when you're on the ground having to give this kind of feedback or having to give this type of performance review or anything, quite frankly, from a leadership standpoint when you've got that dynamic going on in the background. They really didn't teach you how to connect and to inspire, and they were really devoid of anything close to what we call today emotional intelligence. Literally no consequences that could affect one strategy on how to deal with situational leadership because the situation was largely provided to you. They focus so much on the how-tos that they fail to adequately address the complex subtleties of dealing with people. Seeing this inspired me to change how I attacked the problem and how I attacked any problem in my life, and it actually led me to start writing. Now, I want to be fair. The organizational journey from performance reviews to talent management and from prescriptive how-to formulas for success to the more dynamic use of emotional intelligence and situational leadership has been evolving for the last couple of decades. So again, I'm not blaming either the authors nor the programs themselves, but my experience did help me to see that Leadership Zen needed to be something different. Perhaps the biggest lesson, however, had nothing to do with what I had been learning and more of why I had been learning it in the first place. To this point, everything I focused on was designed to help me as a business leader, running teams and eventually organizations throughout my career. Truth be told, a lot of it was management or execution, and little of it had to do with practical leadership. Even if the courses, the books were titled about leadership, again, they lacked enough of the people dynamic that they weren't really effective there. It was more about the habits that made you a more effective manager. Leadership is a much bigger construct involving your personality and your persona. It involves your values and your vision, and also countless other dimensions that will never be discussed around a table in a meeting room. That means to develop leadership, one must transform the person and not just the role. That means, in many cases, changing the definition altogether. And that's when Leadership Zen evolved from a leadership or a management development philosophy into one of personal change. A couple of things became clear along my own journey through corporate America, corporate global, and that's that First, true change doesn't happen because of the things you do externally. They happen because of the things that you do within yourself. One can spend all their time being something else to an organization or to someone else, but the only way you make it stick is by creating different, better habits that permeate your life. Second, as I mentioned, change doesn't just happen in the office, nor does it only happen to people who work in offices. Leadership is a desire to experience more meaningful, purposeful, and fulfilling lives, usually with the added intention of causing a little change in the rest of the world. That applies to all of us, and it literally affects every aspect of our lives. While we at Leadership Zen never abandon the career coaching aspect of the philosophy or the practice, we no longer separate the overall life-enhancing aspects from the overarching aims of our work. We believe that when we become better personal leaders, we also become better business and community leaders. We think our relationships get better, and we think that our overall outlook on life improves. So to be very clear, when we use the term leadership, we refer to leadership across the spectrum, not just formal leadership roles, titles, and positions. This program, this practice, this philosophy is designed for everyone. It is applicable to everyone. And it is truly meant to help anyone achieve greater things throughout the whole of their lives. So that's really a basic introduction to what Leadership Zen is and what it's intended to be. In our next video, we're going to get into the next two videos, we're going to get into a couple of these foundational pieces, including humanism and positive psychology, because in order to progress to where we're talking more about tools and resources and how you actually become a better person, better leader, better person, it's important to really understand those foundational pieces. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to joining you again in episode 3. Have a great day.